What's happening, everybody? Look, on this next episode, you're going to hear from Paul Conway. Paul is retired fire chief from city of Milwaukee, owns Conway equipment. Amazing guy, amazing story. I connected with him through a couple of groups I'm in, but then we spoke together at the Eagle Rise speaking event a couple of weeks ago. I'm in the June of 2024, so he and I met, connected a little deeper in May. So here's what Paul's going to tell you, and it can be he is just a wealth of information, but one of the things that he really is going to get down the rabbit hole on this episode is just checking your people. And sometimes when folks say that they're not all right, they're not all right. He's got a powerful story about his brother, and just definitely make sure you give it a listen, give him a follow, and let me know what you think. See you on the other side. What's happening, everyone? Got something exciting that we are getting ready to do. Paul Conway to join us. Paul's going to be joining us. One thing I wanted him to talk to us about today is a few weeks ago I got to connect with him in person. He shared the powerful journey, powerful story of just his time in the fire service in Milwaukee and everything he had just knowing and learning about him. But then he shared a really, really powerful story about his brother. So he's going to be on here in just a few minutes. I'll send him the invite. Paul is learning technology, so we're going to give him a second. But it's really cool what he had shared with me as he's coming along. So this is his coin that he shared with me at his event. And for folks that's never been in fire service and has never spent any time working in that, it is deeply rooted with tradition and heritage. And every time I put this in my pocket, he doesn't know this, but ever since he gave it to me, I carry it in my pocket with me every day. A little bit of motivation for me, but I also he and I shared a moment there a couple weeks ago while he was sharing that story, and just the power of movement, power of God, as he will tell you, that woke him up in the middle of the night and told him it was time for him to change. Paul, you hear me?
How are you, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Look at you. Look at this guy right here is live on Instagram. Paul, just for everyone else, have you ever been live on Instagram before?
I can honestly say no, that I haven't, and I can say this because we're on my phone, even though I set up in the studio, because apparently I don't have the most updated Instagram on my computer, so we had to go via phone. This is a backstory.
I sent him a video message this week, and he was like, "How the heck did you do that?" So I coached him up on how to send a video chat. Man, he sent it back to me. But Paul, I just real quick for everyone that's listening, tell them real quick about just the time you spent in the fire service, when you got started, and what that looks like for everyone else.
Sure.
So everyone else kind of knows about Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started the fire service, well, probably since I was about 5, but I became a firefighter in 1980 and then became a career. I was a volunteer for a few years, and then I became a career firefighter in 1982. Maintained being a volunteer for quite a few years, but I basically did a little over 30 plus year career in a urban environment, very busy fire department in the Midwest here, the city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Had a blessed time, had a wonderful career, and spent most of it in places that were very busy. Even as battalion chief, I probably ran, 10, 15 runs a day. And as a firefighter and company officer, yeah, we were in the 20 plus runs a day usually. So I wanted to stay busy. Now, this is my personal thing. This is not it's not disrespectful to anybody, but I didn't want to say I was a firefighter. I wanted to be a firefighter. So I chose to be in a busy place, and I stayed there most of my career.
And that takes me where I wanted to ask you. And on the front of your coin is what we typically call these. you've got Conway family, and it runs around the outskirt for folks that hopefully you can see this if you hit pause. But the Conway family runs around the outside of the family. What? Tell me about where you get started there with Thomas.
Yeah. So basically, my grandfather was a volunteer firefighter. My dad, when my dad was little, my dad grew up in Brooklyn, New York. So when my dad was little in the summertime, my grandfather and grandmother would send him off to his uncle's house up in Connecticut. My great uncle was a career firefighter up in Connecticut. So my dad got the itch there, and he became a fire chief, a career fire chief. And since I was about 5, I've been hanging around fire trucks, and that's what gave me the bug. Between not including my great uncle, because I don't know. I know that I know where he worked, but I don't know much about him. So between my grandfather, my father, and myself, yes, we have over 100 years in the fire service. It's just a calling for us. It's a calling. It's what we always wanted to do. My dad was a World War II vet. Oddly enough, it's very odd. It's very weird that you reached out to me today, because today is my dad's birthday. He would have been 101 years old if he was still alive. And my dad just was very strong on teaching us honor, courage, and commitment, and that we have to believe in something greater than self. We have to be able to differ in the sense of, we say honor, courage, commitment. That means that we have to honor is believing in something greater than self. Courage was always taught to me as knowing the difference between the right thing to do and doing the right thing. And then commitment was believing so much in honor that you're willing to give everything to stand by what you believe in. So my dad taught me that stuff. Again, he was a World War II vet, and that's just kind of how my family's been. Believe it or not, most of my other brother was a firefighter, and he was a firefighter with me. The one that I lost to suicide, and all of my sisters are either teachers or nurses, and they married cops. It's just kind of what we do.
Runs in a circle. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I was mentoring someone the other day, and I was like, hey, don't be afraid to look outside of the public safety circle for a spouse. Sometimes it's you guys you bring home a lot of baggage sometime, and if you do marry within, make sure that you recognize that you both are bringing home a lot of other people's baggage into your relationship.
Well, that's a very valid point, because I had my other brother was never into any. He was a foreman for a car manufacturer. And one day, my brother and I, in the late '80s, the homicide rate in the city of Milwaukee took off, because there was a large battle between the Brothers of the Struggle and the Black Gangster Disciples on who was going to control the cocaine traffic. We were there in a discussion that in the firehouse, and it's not something to be proud of, but if you're in our environment, you can somewhat understand it. They had a side bet poll on what the homicide rate was going to end at, and my brother who wasn't in the industry, he was appalled by it, and he couldn't believe it, and he was like, "What is wrong with you two?" And I look back at it and say, "Yeah, he was right. What was wrong with us?" But like you said, you bring that stuff home, and you don't realize that the rest of the world doesn't think like those of us in that industry. It's whether it's a mechanism, a defense mechanism, or whatever. I don't know, but it does change you. There's no doubt about it. So
yeah, you put it, because me and the wife will have those conversations as well. We'll have our opinion on something that's going on in the city or in just in times or whatever, and then I've been known to say, I wonder, we'll call someone else and like, hey, what's y'all's opinion on this or whatever, because our opinions can be very slanted just from a public safety or law and order standpoint, and it's nice to kind of seek outside advice from other folks that aren't into law and order and public safety. It really helps. It helps give you a little more critical advantage or critical thinking advantage. I think sometimes I've learned to do that over the years and just really try to consider everyone else's versus how you and I would think.
absolutely.
All right. So on first year, Thomas A. Is that?
Yeah. So Thomas A. Conway was my grandfather, and then Charles B. Conway is my father, and Charles A. Conway is my brother.
Is your brother, and
Yeah.
then we roll into Paul J.
And then we roll into me. Yeah, yeah.
So that's like, this is really cool. And we'll hit it real quick. You and I had connected, and the day that we were speaking at the Eagle Rise Summit was a day that was a very emotionally connected day. And when you got up to tell everyone, it was on the anniversary, and here we are again. You, like you said, you and I are talking on the anniversary of a relative's birthday, but it was an anniversary day, the day of, that you got to speak about your brother, the contributions, and then ultimately, how he decided to leave the world. And I just want to put it out. People are going to see this video live forever, and if there's opportunities for people to see and listen to you speak to that, it definitely makes sure that they take advantage of that, because it is such a powerful story that you gave to us that day. And I was one of the privileged people that got to be there to hear you tell us that, man. I didn't really get to tell you enough. I think I kept telling you, but it was a really powerful moment for me.
Well, I guess the takeaways I would give people is that, inside that coin, it does say that the greatest hope for humanity is found in those who are willing to risk self for the well-being of strangers. And my brother, he was that man to a fault. I don't know if I mentioned it there because the time was short, but we worked together for a short period of time, because in the city of Milwaukee, you're not allowed. We have the Sullivan rule, where family can't work together. But we managed to finagle it for about 6 months before they caught us. And, we were blessed. We had 5-person engine companies. We would go to EMS runs for shootings and things like that, and quite often they would be involved in a family or in somebody's home, and we would be taking care of the injured party. And I remember the boss saying quite often, "Where's your brother?" And I'd say, I don't know, somewhere in the house here, I'm sure. And we would look, and my brother would be in the other room reading books to young children, because he always felt so. On a shooting, for example, we'd send an engine and a paramedic unit, so there was 3 on the med unit, 5 on the engine. There's 8 people. We need one more person standing in the room trying to plug holes. So he would take the kids out of the room and do something good for them. And that's who he was. And I say that because, as men, we always say we're right, we're all right, we're fine. And if I would have looked back, if we would have taken a moment, I would have realized that my brother wasn't fine, and that the job that he loved so much, the thing that he felt my father respected us for, was getting to him. Physically, he was getting older. He had a couple of bad knees. He was just getting concerned that he may not be able to complete the job, finish his career. Emotionally, the neighborhood we worked in and the people we served, the strife that they had to deal with was getting to him. And, we are all from an era that, suck it up, kid, get another, you see this stuff and tough it out, go home, have a cocktail, and you're fine. Well, my brother, quite frankly, towards the end of his life, was an alcoholic and had too many cocktails, because he could, no matter how many he had, he couldn't solve the problem that he faced. So, I look at it now and I look back on it and I say, we're not all right. We say it.
Yeah.
As men, we say it, but the reality is we're not all right. So if I could tell anything to anybody, that a lesson learned from this, outcome from this, is that you check on your friends. And I mean, literally check on them. Call them up, see what's going on. Hey, how are you doing? Go visit them if you possibly can, because you're going to see in their face. You'll know, and I used to instruct this all the time to my company officers when I was a chief, is that you have to really know your people. you have to embed with them. And I don't mean just spend time in a firehouse, but I mean really know them and know, when they come into work and they're different, all right, do you have a problem at home? Is there, one of the kids sick? Maybe you had an argument with your wife, whatever. So you can actually see these things. And when you start to see a pattern that's not the normal person you're used to, intervene and ask, find out what's going on. You all right? And the second thing I would say to this is that, I've been to enough. We were blessed in the city of Milwaukee. We had an amazing, we had a counselor that had great street cred. She had been through the ringer in life, and short story, it was very funny when the first time I went to go see her over an incident, and she brought up something. She said, look, just so you know, I know you cops and firemen you think nobody understands it. Well, here, let me tell you this story. And her estranged husband in front of her shot her boyfriend and then took his own life. And he happened to be on that run. So it was like, wow, okay, yeah, okay, I get this. Point being is that, it's not weakness to go get counseling. It's not weakness to go talk to somebody. And we need to get out of that. We need to break that. We need to break that stigma. I can't say enough how we need to get out of that behavior, out of that mentality, because it's okay. How many times, in your life did you see things that your brain said, I know this. I can see what I'm looking at, but my brain's not registering what I'm seeing. And that's not normal. That's not natural. So to get help for it, there's nothing wrong with that. So I think that, like I said, check on your people, check on the loved ones, check on your friends. And if it's you personally, go out and get some help. Find a counselor, find a good counselor. It may take you one, it may take you 10. It certainly, I had my share that I was like, yeah, you and I are not going to jive. I'm not going to sit here and be, I don't want to call it mamby-pamby, but I'm not all soft and gentle. So,
Mike Odo out at LAPD says they make him hug the teddy bear. So he used to,
yeah.
Teddy bear sitting on the thing. He said he felt like it was part of the test to see if he would hug the teddy bear or not. So he always hugs the teddy bear.
Yeah, that's not going to happen probably. But anyway, so yeah, that's the story. And
one question I had that you triggered there, just coming up like I did, was, did your brother work in that same community that he lived? Did he serve the community he lived in?
Pretty much. We had to live in the city of Milwaukee, so but he did literally live just outside our first due area of and by rights, actually, short stories, we finagled an interdepartment transfer that we could work in the same company. But his company that he actually worked in on a daily basis was in his neighborhood. Yeah, it was about 10 blocks from his house. So yeah, he was in it every day. And he just had a passion for individual human beings that actually my dad did also. I think I fell on my head when I was little because I didn't have it as much, but I do now that I'm older. I see where they got it from. But he just had an unbelievable passion for suffering, and he would absorb it like a sponge, and unfortunately it got the best of him.
I'd grow it like ours was rural, Paul, and the sheriff I worked for, he was real big on if you're going to work here, you're going to live here. The downside to that, there's some positives because you're accountable to your community, but the downside is not only do you take those bad scenes, those bad incidents, you have to be a part of those, but your kids are part of them, your families are part of them. The calls that you run, your family and your friends, you're right around them all the time. So it's a lot of it's extra added pressure, in my opinion, just because we work in that same communities that we serve, and we end up going to school and all these things. So sometimes I always question, like, hey, is that a really good idea? Should we let some kind of distancing residence requirements and things like that? I've always wondered that. Nick Kamalotis, I always mess his name up, but you'll see him through some of the stuff that Majors works on, and he does some square. He's got a book out when he came out of the Marines, and he speaks to a lot of fire and police events. So that's one of the things he brings up, is like how crazy it is that you're not only you're exposed to all the negatives and trying to live in this community, but you deal with everybody's problems too, and it's just an added stressor, I think. So
Yeah, I, when it comes to that, I'm a big believer in that. If you don't, and when I say live in a community, Milwaukee was big enough that I lived in the city, but I was normally not in the community. I was not shopping at the same grocery store I shopped at when I was at work. But I believe that if you can get a mentality of becoming an occupying force if you don't live there. But I also understand, like you said, I live in a rural community now. And I know that when my neighbor had a heart attack, working his farm, the volunteer fire department, who are his neighbors, all came to do CPR on their friend, and then had to rush him, their friend, to the hospital where he was succumbed to the heart attack, and then turn around and go to his funeral and be with his family and all these other things that the I can understand your point considerably, that the loss is not only the loss that you saw while you're at work, but you're actually working on friends that you saw every day, people you deal with every day. And that I can see where that definitely it doesn't go away. There's no time to put it away. There's no time to as I always say, put it in the file cabinet and store it, because you're interacting with the same people. There's just one person missing. So that does make sense. I mean, that I can definitely see your point there.
yeah, it's just always something that to think about. And I started really early too. And I have friends now that come, like I'll just talk with or coach a little bit. But I started at 15, like I think I shared with the group.
Yeah.
And we were driving. I was with a friend from public safety and law enforcement the other day, and he and I were in a car, and I was telling him my feelings on it. I was like, I think if we're going to bring our kids into that, we have to really handle them with, because I started seeing a lot of trauma and things that a lot of folks don't ever see at a
Yeah.
very young age, and you're still developing and things, and see a lot of you see a lot of trauma, you see a lot of death starting off. So I've dealt with a lot of that stuff, but sometimes I go, I wonder if that was the most healthy thing for me at 15. And everybody was always there saying, hey, we were here to help, make sure we talk, but it wasn't at the scale that we do now. And then I still don't know that it's at the scale that it should be, as far as like what we're talking about today is a lot of just, hey, making sure you're asking for help, making sure you're. I'll tell you what, Paul, one of the things that helps me is just talking to you. Like, it really helps me just get a lot of the things that's on my mind out, or when someone's on the podcast or whatever, we're just having a conversation about the job, and it's your very perspectives and different than someone who's within my friend network who may be enabling me unbeknownst to them, right? Where you're that outside voice that steps in. I preach that a lot, is like, don't just talk to your friend circle about what's going on in your life, but try to find a couple of people outside of that and talk to them, because your friends sometimes are going to enable you and tell you everything's going to be okay. An outside source is going to be like, hey, yeah, you got a lot of dysfunction. Wait a minute. You need more. You need some outside. You need more than what you're looking for there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's that old, I don't know what they call meme or whatever, that, it says we don't hide our crazy. We just show it off on the front porch, and some people do that well, and other people do hide it well. But it is it is an issue, and certainly finding people, that is a very valid point. Finding people outside your normal circle make a difference. And we all bring a story to the table. One of the things that I learned at that Speakers Bureau seminar was that everybody has a story.
Yeah.
And that some are, you take back and go, wow, that's something else. And some are, well, okay, that's interesting. But the reality is everybody has a story. And, maybe it's something for us all to think about as we walk through our life, we walk through our days. I mean, I try to be passionate about positively impacting the world. through how I act. As we all know, if you were with me the last couple of days, which I know you were, but I believe I can do that best by living my life as Christ would expect me to live and as he lived. And a lot of that comes into the idea that we don't know what's going on in that other person's life. And when I met you, I had no idea. I had no idea about your story. I had no idea about any of it. And I think too often as human beings, we make a precast judgment when we see somebody or whatever, or maybe somebody has a bad day or they start a sentence off the wrong way or whatever. You go, oh, I don't know what's wrong with them. Boy, are they a problem. And the reality is, though, we don't often enough take the time to think, well, what is really wrong with them?
Yeah.
What is going on? What happened with them today? Maybe today's the day that they just got told they have cancer. Maybe today's the day that they found out that their loved one, their daughter, their son is addicted to narcotics. We don't know what their day is like, and we don't spend enough time trying to find out. And even if you don't want to find out, even if it's an interaction at the grocery store, at least giving them the grace to let them have their day. We don't do enough of that, and I think we should. I really do.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I had someone talking to me the other day about just some frustrations with a staff member. They had asked to do something, and they were frustrated. They was like, "Hey, ask them to do this." They pushed back, and I said, "It's not like them to push back. You sure? You sure they ain't got something going on at home?" Right? I just like, "Hey, just ask them. Don't be afraid to ask them. Hey, man, are you okay? Because it's not like you to push back. It's not like same thing you said. Is it's okay to ask that, clarify and question and dig a little deeper sometimes. And if they tell you no and go on, I had that happen to me a couple times, and I wasn't ready to talk about how the bad spot I was in, but it made me think, wait a minute, that person cares, and I'm starting to show too much emotion. And, it let me go back and it helped me fix some things. But I think you're spot on with what you're saying, man. I'm not going to steal too much more of your time, but I do want to know, and I want everyone else to hear, Paul, that you've retired. What is Paul Conway doing now?
Well, so
real quick, I think I maybe skipped over, but you left the fire service or you started a company. That's what I wanted to just touch on, your company that you started. I think you retired from that. Yeah. So hit that company.
Yeah. So my company, Conway Shield, we protect courage. And when you say, well, what does that mean? Conway Shield provides equipment and training to both fire and law enforcement. We have been in business. I actually started it when I came on the City of Milwaukee Fire Department. So we've been in business it'll be 40 years next year. It was something that started out of just something for me to do on my off time. As we all know, firefighters never sit still. That turned into a company that has over 100 dealers. We sell internationally. We have 15 salesmen in the street, and we employ almost 40 people. So, it's just been an amazing thing. 2 years ago, I stepped down as the CEO of that, and my son took it over. I still am the chairman, so I stick my nose in there once in a while. But for the most part, if I stay out, the company runs better. Chairman, as they say, is a lie. I left the fire department in 2012, so I've been out for I don't know, what is that, 14 years now or 12 years now. But retirement's a lie. If everybody thinks they're going to retire and sit on a beach, they're full of beans. You got to be doing something. You have to keep moving or you're going to die. And I'm a firm believer in that you have to always be learning. My learning curve in the last 12 years has probably been greater than it has the first 40 years of my life, 50 years of my life. And it's only because, like I said earlier, at 5, this is all I wanted to do. So at 10 years old, I could tell you a 28-foot extension ladder the rungs were 1.25 inches. They were 14 inches apart. It was 222 pounds. That's how much that ladder weighed. I don't think most 10-year-olds cared about that, but I did. So it became natural to me. And then when I retired, I was no longer there and I had to find something else. and I really started, seeing other things. So currently, what we have done is that Beyond the Shield is a podcast that we established. I established earlier this year, and the whole purpose of Beyond the Shield is basically where American patriots and heroes will come together and literally, as we're doing now, discuss all kinds of topics. But they have to be positive. We're not just going to be there to complain, and we also have to, just have good discussions on things we've learned. Because one of the things that whether it be my children, which I have four of, or it be like they're all grown adults now, or it is other people I just meet like you or anybody else, is if you have something to teach me from your experience, I sure would love to know it.
Yeah.
So I don't do it myself. And I know as a young man, and I'm sure you were the same, if somebody told us something and said, hey, kid, and I'll use this for an example. I used to have a firefighter that was a good senior man, which holds its own title in the fire service. And he no longer drank. And he ate healthy, and he no longer drank. And he used to say, kid, it's going to come a time when that drinking stuff's going to wear on you. And I used to think, as I was, pounding my sixth beer or whatever, what do you know, old man? You're full of beans. And now I look and go, God, everybody I see, I go, hey, you'd feel a lot better if you didn't throw that poison down your belly every day. Nah, what do you know? I do know because I was there. So I guess, I look and I say that if there's things that I learned from my experience that I could pass along so you don't have to suffer through that same pain. That's my goal now in life. That's what I'd like to do. That's what I want to get across. So that's what the podcast is. It's getting people together to talk about positivity in the world. I think that the social media space, there is just too much negativity, way too much.
I used to say I heard what you said. I just wasn't ready to listen.
There you have it.
And I told one of my friends. He's like, I'm tired of telling you. I'm like, dude, you were right all along. I didn't say you're wrong. I just wasn't ready to listen.
And as we all learn, it's really no different than for me, it's no different than my pathway to Christ. You're not ready until your heart is softened, and then you're still not ready until you get to that point where you look and you ask for his, you say, Lord, I need you, and you surrender, and he says, I've been waiting since you were XYZ years old. I've been waiting on this. But he's always there. And it, it's the same type of metaphors that you can tell us all kind of things, but if we can hear it, but if we're not listening, don't matter.
Yeah.
Just don't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. So that takes me to where I like to go, dude. We'll wrap it up. I just wanted to scratch the surface, and I really wanted to get the story out about your coin and tell you how much I appreciate this. This rides with me. It rides with me for what you shared with me, and then the moment we had. I think I told you I had woke up at 3 a.m. as well, and I felt like there was that room was speaking to both of us, and just hopefully it led to us connecting deeper and just through our conversations. And I'm just so glad that I met you. Anything I can do to support you, make sure you do, and make sure that folks are connecting with you on social. That your link will be here, and for your social media, and then we'll make sure that we follow along with the Beyond the Shield podcast as well, so we can learn more about you and your mission and everything, all the good things that you're doing.
Beautiful. Well, and I will do the same, but I will tell you that it'll take me a little longer because I'm not up on it like you. But I also will, let's leave with the idea of, I know we showed the one side of the coin, but the other side I think is as important. And that it does say in there, you before me, and it finishes with John 15:13, which is really it. For those who don't know, it is greater love have no one than this, that they laid on their life for their friends. And if we can make the world a better place if we understand and we put you before me, and we understand that there is something greater. And if we for those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who will lose their life will be saved. And we just need to remember that this world is world. Boy, it's a sad place for me just by where it's going. But that's a whole different conversation. But understand, if we put others before ourselves, the world's going to be a better place. So always let's keep that in mind.
Positive every day, Paul. No matter what you see and all those things like that, those outside distractions, man. But I tell you, you buckle down, and the messages you send out and the efforts that you've made, man, it's been felt through communities, and your impact in public safety. I had a friend, Paul, and I'll tell you real quick. I said, hey, I met this guy, Paul Conway, man. He was, I was telling about you and Tim, and he goes, I know the supply company or something like that. He goes, I've heard, and I was like, yeah, he's got a whole other story outside of that. So your impact has been felt in just your family name. So it's really cool to point that out to us.
You say that, and I'll leave with this one thing, because you're right. There's something about it. Last year, we provide ballistics for law enforcement, and last year in a city just outside Milwaukee, one of their police officers was saved by the vest that we sold, and it was it's a thing where you realize that, wow, we made a difference. I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but that moment, we protected courage. We made a difference. This officer took 2 rounds in the chest, and both of them were stopped by his ballistic armor, and he got to go home to his family because of it. That's a good feeling to know that you made a difference that day.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Big deal, bud.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap up with you. I'm going to head to the country, but I'm really hoping that we can reconvene and get a little deeper down the rabbit hole with some good stories from you at some point in time. So,
all right, my brother, we can do that.
Appreciate it. Look at you. I'll tell you what, if you ain't doing nothing today, you learned how to do technology, Paul Conway. You need to be proud of yourself.
All right, brother.
See you, man. Have a good one.
You have a wonderful day. All right, man. God bless.
Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
See you, buddy.
Yep. Bye-bye.
All right, folks. Make sure you watch that one. Paul absolutely was an amazing guest, and he is a neat guy to get to know. So thank y'all for tuning in. For the folks who join live, if you're watching this after the fact, make sure you drop some comments below and give Paul some love. Give him a follow. Make sure you check out his podcast, especially if you're in a public safety community. But look forward to seeing everyone soon. Take care.